is Unaffected. Welcome to Unaffected, a podcast that offers a curated look at some obscure, forgotten, and neglected singers of the mid-20th century. I'm your host, Ethan Stoller, and let's get right to some music. This is Inez Jones, who made her debut recording at the age of 40, which is super unusual for this era. This is a song she co-wrote called Take a Backseat, Mr. Jackson, and maybe put on your boogie and dance shoes for this one. It's got a nice up-tempo feel, and it features my new favorite lyric, "You don't suit my satisfaction." I'm going to start saying that more often. Enjoy.
Take a backseat, Mr. Jackson. You don't suit my satisfaction, 'cause a new love has come my way. If you're thinking I'll regret it, man, you might as well forget it, 'cause a new love has come my way.
So that actually isn't Inez Jones playing piano here, but she really made her career playing piano and singing, doing long stints at different nightclubs throughout the 40s and 50s. She was 5 years in one place and 3 years in another place, very long standing. She just doesn't have a lot of recordings to her name. She eventually settled in Oakland, California, where she laid down her roots. And she finally recorded her first LP in 1957 at the age of 45. And it's got a much more jazzy standard feel than the song we just heard. Let's listen to her interpretation of one of my favorite standards, Rodgers and Hart, Where or When, the best piece of pop culture about deja vu until the glitch in the Matrix came along. This is Inez Jones, Where or When. Enjoy.
The clothes you're wearing are the clothes you wore. The smile you were smiling then. But I can't remember where or when. For the first time seems to be happening again, and so it seems like we have met before. I'm loved before. I'm loved before. But who knows where or when.
In 1993, Inez Jones and her husband, Paul Jones, were one of 5 subjects in a documentary about couples that have very long-standing relationships, 50 years and over. At the time it was filmed, they had been married 55 years. It's a very sweet documentary. It seems to have been inspired by those little segments in When Harry Met Sally, when they interview the older couples, how they first got together, which is fine. It was nominated for Best Documentary Feature in the Oscars. It did not win. But just on a side note, it seems like production value for Oscar-type documentaries has skyrocketed in the last 30 years. It's very simply realized. It's a lot of talking head interviews and some B-roll. not too flashy, which is fine. It suits the subject matter. It's called For Better or For Worse. I'll put it's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's worth a look. There's some sweet stories, and you might get a good cry out of it. Not saying I did, okay, folks. Come on. But we do learn a lot about her biography, and I'll get to some of that in just a little bit. But as to her singing, her husband describes what he loves about her singing and what he fell in love with about her singing the first time he heard her. And I think it circles back for me personally to what I always talk about on this show as far as the virtue of unaffectedness, which I think I described before as the absence of inauthentic emotion. So let's listen to Paul Jones just wax about what he loves about his wife's voice.
And she started singing, which I knew she could sing, but she sang to my heart at that time.
So that they can fly, would you take?
I could see the truth in her all the time. And she was honest. That was one of the honesty. And what she'd done with her music was more like she felt, she lived the song she sang.
Right. That's it. Do that, singers. One other description of Inez Jones's voice that I loved was from a writer named Mark Myers, who has a blog called Jazzwax. And he described her tone as toasty, which I guess especially on the upper and lower limits of her range, he'd said, but I think it describes it so well. So with all this in mind, let's listen to some toasty, honest goodness from Inez Jones. This is Until the Real Thing Comes Along.
I'd work for you, I'd slave for you, I'd be a beggar or a knave for you. If that is love, it will have to do until the real thing comes along. I'd gladly move the earth for you to prove my love due and its worth for you. If that isn't love, it will have to do until the real thing comes along.
So real quick, I thought the vocals are a little quiet in the mix there, so I ran this through an AI app to separate out the vocals. So let's listen to the bridge with just the vocals and a little of the guitar peeks through, because, AI is still imperfect. Don't tell them I said that.
With all the words, dear, at my command, I just can't seem to make you understand. I'll always love you, darling, come what may. My love is yours, what more can I say?
So that's a fun tool. I did add a tiny bit of reverb and compression to that just to sweeten it up. Hope that's okay. So I felt myself just basking in what we were talking about, the toastiness and the honesty. She's really got it all. This record she made, her only LP, weirdly was recorded for this record label that only released reel-to-reel tapes. So this was in an era when formats were changing, and this company, Omega Tape, thought they had a new competitor for LPs. So when nobody bought the reel-to-reel tape, they licensed their music to a different record company. And as far as I can tell, there has never been a copy of this reel-to-reel tape sold, like on eBay or anywhere. There's no listing of it on Discogs. I've seen pictures of the cover, which is different than the other album cover, but it's one of those holy grails that's out there somewhere. So if you find it, kick it over my way. But as I mentioned earlier, the amazing thing about Inez Jones's life was how much she endured, her persistence, her loyalty, her dedication to her family, to her neighborhood. A lot of this is detailed in that documentary. She once co-wrote a song called The Merry Christmas Waltz, which was recorded by Gene Autry. Amazing. She turned down a big international showbiz opportunity in Copenhagen because she didn't want to take her kids out of school. She survived 2 strokes. She survived the death of 2 of her children, which is very poignantly addressed in this documentary. She started a garden in her neighborhood in Oakland, growing all kinds of plants and food and flowers, and that was bulldozed in order to make way for a big expressway and some of the BART system, eminent domain case. But as we see so often with Inez Jones's story, there was some rebirth, and the garden lives again now. The garden was revived and put back into indigenous people's hands. It's called Ramay, Rammay, which means west in the Chochenyo Ohlone language. And Inez Jones's contribution to the garden is still celebrated today on their website, even though she's been gone 30 years. There's a beautiful song by an amazing songwriter about a garden that I thought would be an appropriate companion to this story. It's written by and sung by the famous Chilean folk singer Violeta Parra. It's called Yo tenía en mi jardín. I had in my garden. I'm going to read you the entire text, and I'm going to play you her rendition of it. And I'm picturing in whichever year it was that they tore down Inez Jones's garden, and she's watching the bulldozer, destroy this work that she's tended to with her hands for so many years. And this song does not end on a happy note. We know the happy note comes much later, but this is in that moment. The text reads, I had in my garden a very fragrant rose. Under 7 locks a giant stole it from me. Beautiful garden of flowers that finally withered. Even though I watered them with tears, I can't revive them. A very skilled hawk that has stolen my deity under 7 locks, and with such ease. The rays of the sun came out to oppose me, and in my garden they will soon choose the flowers. I wish to dress myself in a butterfly suit, to enter my garden and take care of my rose. And here's Violeta Parra's version of the song from 1957.
Yo tenía en mi jardín una rosa muy fragante, debajo de 7 llaves me la roba un gigante, debajo de 7 llaves me la roba un gigante. Bonito el jardín de flores que se me secaron por fin, aunque con llanto las riegue, yo no las puedo revivir, aunque con llanto las riegue, yo no las puedo revivir. Quisiera vestirme yo con traje de mariposa para adentrarme a mi jardín y poder cuidar mi rosa, para adentrarme a mi jardín y poder cuidar mi rosa.
There's so much to talk about with Violeta Parra. I can't do her justice in the time we have here. Books have been written about her. There was a biopic made. So many fascinating things about her. She exhibited some visual art at the Louvre once. So I encourage you to do your own research a little bit. One of Violeta Parra's great champions was Mercedes Sosa, an Argentinian singer who recorded an entire album of Violeta's songs, one of which, Gracias a la Vida, has become something of an international sensation. I think it's the most famous song Violeta ever wrote, and also the most famous one Mercedes ever sung. And Mercedes was featured in the New York Times crossword puzzle this past October. And that's some kind of metric that I should be using for, is this singer obscure enough for this podcast? But it was on a Saturday, and apparently people did complain that she was too obscure for the crossword puzzle. So there's some kind of rubric I need to set up for these things, but I don't think she's quite a household name. So anyway, so this is from 1971, Gracias a la Vida, Mercedes Sosa interpreting the beautiful song of Violeta Parra.
Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado y en las multitudes del hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el oído que en todo su ancho graba noche y días, grillos y canarios, martillos, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado.
Now, there's a certain live recording of this song that has become something of a cottage industry on YouTube of vocal coaches reacting to the performance in real time. I'm sure you've seen videos like this. I found one, then I found two, then there's like, I don't know how many, a dozen at least. They all unanimously think she's great. But there was one vocal coach in particular stood out to me, and I highly recommend looking it up, especially one if you can find where the lyrics are interpreted, because the lyrics are very beautiful. But there was one of these that stood out to me, and you'll understand why. But that'll be it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please, if you have a minute, rate, review, share, yell it on top of a roof. We're trying to get a little more listenership here. I'm really enjoying it, and spread the word if you can. Thank you so much, and I will see you in a couple weeks with another episode of Unaffected.
Del que estoy amando.
Interesting use of vibrato there. It's very quick in oscillation. There's no sort of straight tone into vibrato, very much into vibrato straight away there. And very short though. These aren't held out long phrases that she's going for. A very sort of softly spoken, very heartfelt, very... Sorry, I was just like enjoying the moment. Present moment, that's all we ever have, by the way. Sorry, spiritual. Singing is spiritual, though. It takes you to another dimension, another level that I don't think people can explain. And that's the thing, you lose yourself in the vocal, you know, a very pure tone, a very unaffected tone, a very gorgeous woman, and acoustic. That's all you need sometimes. You don't need to... Although it's all amazing when you can have these amazing sort of instruments and embellished notes, but there's always a time for simplicity like this, you know, unaffected.
This has been an Ambivert Media production.